Hope everyone's safe out there. Hope you've recovered from Hurricane Helene and life is getting back to normal, or as much normalcy as we can have. We have an election in just over a month, and climate change has to be the issue in Florida. I respect all the conversations about other issues, but sea level rise and climate change are making this state and portions of the state less and less inhabitable, as I've talked about in the previous video, not to mention the cost of insurance and how real estate is going to have a bubble. And let's talk for a minute about once-in-a-lifetime events, because that's the line that's always being used to describe these climatic events, these weather events, these extreme weather events. Well, we have had 7, count it, 7 once-in-a-lifetime events, once-in-a-100-year event, once-in-a-500-year event in the last 25 months here in the state of Florida. The first was obviously Hurricane Ian, which while it took a similar path as Hurricane Charlie did in 2004, did a whole lot more damage to the interior of the state from Arcadia north. Arcadia had a rough time with Charlie, actually. So let's say from Bartow north through Orange County, Seminole County, out the coast, right? The other side, Volusia, St. John's. Extreme event in September of 2022. Let's talk about the Fort Lauderdale rainstorm of April 2023, which stranded thousands at the airport, including myself. I had gone to pick up my cousin, who was coming in for my father's first day of chemotherapy. Unfortunately, my father passed away from the effects of chemotherapy a little over a month later. We had 27 inches of rain in 6 hours in Fort Lauderdale. And it was called a, quote, once-in-500-year event. Interesting, because 14 months later, I'm writing press releases for the ICC cricket to most of the English-speaking world, explaining that we had a once-in-a-100-year meteorological event in Fort Lauderdale, which is why we had to scrub a couple cricket matches in the World Cup. So this was things that people in Australia and the UK and South Africa and India were paying attention to. And I knew I was lying when I said that, because we had just had an event 14 months earlier. We had record storm surge from Idalia in the Big Bend region in September of 2023, once in 100 years, we're told. Well, that once in 100 years became once in a year, because that record was broken a year later by Helene. We had the Tallahassee tornadoes of May of 2024, which went through Myers Park. Indian Head got hit pretty badly. Cascades Park, once in a lifetime event. That's what we were told. I mentioned the June 2024 rain in southern Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, and Palm Beach, and how it affected the Cricket World Cup in Fort Lauderdale and my own role in that. Debbie in August 2024, I was doing events in Sarasota and Pinellas County and Hillsborough County at the time, told it was a once-in-a-lifetime rain event for Sarasota County. This has never happened before. We haven't had this sort of flooding before in Sarasota County. Once-in-a-lifetime Debbie. Once-in-a-lifetime rain event for Lake City and for places like McClenny and Baker County. In fact, a once-in-60-year event for them, because they had been doused by Dora. Live Oak also doused by Hurricane Dora in 1964. So once-in-60-year event. And then now Helene, a once-in-a-100-year event, or at least 100-year event, happening less than 2 months after Debbie and affecting many of the same places. And one of the areas where it broke storm surge records, it broke the storm surge records of Idalia, which a year ago we were told was a once-in-a-100-year storm surge event. Why? Sea levels are higher. The climate is changing. These storms are becoming bigger and more powerful. Yes, as I've explained before, we've always had Category 5 storms like Andrew and Camille. But now we have storms with much bigger wind fields, which are kicking up bigger waves and bigger storm surges. Ian took a similar path to Charlie. Both made landfalls, strong Cat 4s. Ian was a lot bigger than Charlie was. We see in the case of Hermine, it's the biggest storm we had ever seen in the state of Florida in the recorded history of this state. You had tropical storm winds in Miami at the same time as you were having tropical storm winds in Apalachicola. That's how big the storm was. So, if you really want to make a change, find out where your legislators sit on climate change. Find out where your local elected officials stand on climate change, because we've been told we can't mention climate change in the state. It's been deleted from state laws. And guess what? You need to vote. You need to vote based on this issue, because Florida is not sustainable the way we're going with people who are climate deniers.